pretty much this trailer is as I want it now, which is easy to use solo and pretty much in any weather. In this video I want to take you through how I have converted this trailer, an aluminium trailer, into a roller trailer. When I bought this trailer it was on bunks, but I have an aluminium hull and I wanted as much protection on that, the rough Irish roads. I didn't want damage to occur, and I was also having quite a lot of trouble getting it on and off the trailer because where I launch most often, which has got strong currents and winds that run straight across the slipway. So to solve that, initially I put these rollers on, and that involved putting this extra cross member on in order to mount the rollers, and these are great. But the problem is that if you bounce off these with the inflatable hull, they can throw you off the center line. As much as they can help you at slow speed, they may throw you off again at higher speed. And so the ideal pairing then is this long row of rollers with the guide poles. And that's where I am now. I'm very happy with this trailer as it is now. I've tested it, I've towed it over mountains, across sinking bog roads at speed, and it's very, very comfortable, very solid, and it recovers easy on my own. And that's where I wanted to get to. So that's what we're going to cover, is how I fitted these, and they run all the way along there. And some other issues we had with the trailer as well, such as the winch handle was fouling the hull here when you were recovering, and I moved the tire there as well. So quite a few changes, but it is where I want it to be now. Pretty happy with how it is. And so it's at the point where I think I've stopped fiddling with this and got it to where it's just right that I'm making this video. Maybe put a brew on. The roller wheels I elected to use are Suprot rollers from T-Taps in Germany. I selected these wheels because I had already used 2 of them for a year on the trailer and they were showing no signs of corrosion. These were not cheap. I am not sponsored by this company, but if the labour is mine, I feel the cost of a better roller is covered. My strategy on positioning was very simple, as many as possible. Here you can see the original bunks. At this point I had already added a few rollers to prevent damage and to give guidance to the hull. I also had the Floatem guide poles fitted already. I would say that a lot more time was spent thinking about this than was spent doing it. It takes a good bit of thinking to figure out what will fit and how many. One of the days that convinced me that I just needed rollers was my second ever launch, where I was recovering with 3 or 4 knots of current across the trailer. I could not align with the bunks, and while crabbing in I took a chunk out of the rubber keel strip. The second day that convinced me was this day. I hauled the trailer up out of low water onto the trailer. The burden, scratching and strain on everything was just no good. Although I had started with a few rollers here and there to guide the boat in, I realised it was time for rollers all around. Having access to low water launches has many advantages: more time in the water, quieter slipways, and less submerging of equipment into salt water. Also, it opens up the bottom arc of the tide as options for a day trip. For example, Colt Island is only safely accessible in most conditions at low water due to the spit of sand, usually accessible only at that time. Being able to launch and recover in less water allows launch at low water, spend a few hours outside the bar, and then return on the early part of the flood tide without your day being too long. All I've used is a scissor jack, and that's holding the wheels against the hull. And I've just hand tightened it so it's not major, and then just to see that they're all touching nice and firm. See, it's sitting on the keel roller as well. I'm going to put them on there, there. I'm going to take off these original bunks meant to be a roller trailer. This aft one was a little more difficult because there's very little clearance between the boat while it's sitting on the keel roller. So again, I used the jack and just a little piece of wood there to stop it coming out, and I didn't want it to touch the plastic kit up here. In all the beach landings I have done, the only damage to my hull comes from these. I'm glad to see the back of them. So this was halfway through the trailer conversion. I probably could have left it like this, but I decided to test it at this configuration and keep going with more rollers if I was happy. So here was that recovery. Naturally, I was very happy with this. This is a very shallow slipway and she rolled right up onto the trailer very easily. I've just been using this jack just to push them up against the hull so that they're just turnable and that they're all even. And so I've already got 6 sets of these, 3 aside on, and I've done a launch test and it's worked really well. It was really smooth on the motorway, and on speed bumps and things like that I couldn't hear any rattling from the boat, so I feel like the hull is happy. So I've decided to go all in with these. I've got more wheels to fit because the more the better, the more or less chance of damage to the hull. So the way it's going to work is that this set will just fit in here and I'll just pressurize it with the jack and then tighten it up, and that'll be this side done, except down at the transom I'll get two more fitted down by the transom. There he goes. It really is a bit of a juggling act to get these lined up. As a 2-person job this might be easier, but I was just tapping away with it over the winter. The vertical stanchions are hinged to the crown to allow the bracket to adapt to the hull shape, but it means it's like balancing a broom handle at times, maybe even a broom handle that's hinged in the middle. There are 2 U-bolts and a clamping plate. You want to get one side of the top U-bolt and one side of the bottom U-bolt touching the crossbar of the trailer to prevent it from loosening. You should find this straightforward enough if you just use all 3 hands. Here I need to end up with the top right and the bottom left bolt in contact with the trailer crossbar. Don't over tighten one knot beyond the others. Keep working one and then the other diagonally or in a star pattern, much as you would with a wheel. You can see welded into the boat's hull that there is a strake. I carefully kept the rollers a couple of inches away from these strakes so that they would not be captured by the double rollers during recovery. Maybe just pause to admire those welds. I've seen hulls of varying standards. I suppose these boats are welded by individuals, so the standard can vary, and I'm very happy with the ones on mine. Maybe if you're buying a boat, see if you can view the hull first. The geometry of the hull has so many variables, you need to be sure the hull will not move during this setup, or you will be chasing your tail. It looks like frustrating work, but to be honest, as the owner of a 20-year-old Land Rover, working with brand new bolts instead of crumbling rust is basically like a session in transcendental meditation. The sequence is loosen the crown nuts, jack it into place, tighten the clamping U-bolts against the square plate you see here, and then go back up and tighten the crown nuts that hold the angle of the four wheels to match the dead rise of the hull at the location of the brackets. So they're all just snugly tight. Now that one there is a bit loose there because of the curvature of the hull is coming up here, so you kind of lose that one there. That's alright. So the other side is all but the same. I kept all the bolts facing forwards just to give some symmetry to the look of the trailer and also to make checking them easier in future. This type of scissor car jack was useful in that its natural geometry matched the angle of the hull roughly. I used wooden chocks to avoid chipping the galvanized coating of the roller bracket. Getting the U-bolts into position close to the cross frame on the trailer is, as I said before, important. In tightening the bolts, you will just bend the plate if it is too far from the cross member. This might also open the door for roller brackets getting loose later on if given a whack by the boat during recovery. It took a little persuasion at times to get it right. Good.
I think they looked at business.
Now it's time to tighten the upper hinge bracket to set the rollers to permanently match the hull's angle. The aft rollers had to be cut down as their stanchions would reach too close to the road. I obtained some galvanized paint to cover the area I had cut by pencil marking all the way around with a square and then cutting each side individually. I got a reasonable finish with the angle grinder. My safety Crocs are not rated for this kind of work, so I made sure I was not in line with the blade. Note to self, boots for next time. You can see in this view that the space down aft for these big rollers is tight. However, most of the weight is down aft, so if damage to the hull plates will occur from the trailer bouncing against the hull, it will be down aft. I have the trailer jacked and chocked to get under it here, but be careful, all these roller brackets end up like an inverted bed of nails pointing down on you. You need to be sure it will not fall.
So I've lowered this and raised this using these little shimmies here because this handle used to foul against that.
The original bunks did not bridge between hull frames, so I have now arranged my rollers to meet frames in the region of the stern in particular. This did not cause significant damage, but you could see a curve in the plate beginning to form from trailer usage. Thank goodness for ratchet spanners. Sockets are handy, but I used this kind of spanner a great deal during this process. Even though my trailer is only 18 months old, you can see that a lot of nuts are rusting already. I always freshwater wash the trailer after use, but if an impact wrench was used during setup or manufacture, then the galvanizing gets battered off by it. Hence, these spanners are better. You can also see the safety chain I have added. Adding rollers adds the risk of the boat simply rolling off the trailer, particularly on the slipway, hence the need for this. Next time I change a bike tube, I will wrap this chain as it clanks around at the moment. Again, when tightening these nuts, go around these in a diagonal star pattern, not just one at a time, or you'll distort the U-bolt. I put much heavier straps on than the trailer came with. The stainless ones are the business. Corrosion in all of this would wreck your head. Beating it is worth it, hence my aluminium trailer.
To stop this spare wheel from corroding, I've had to keep it upright, otherwise it's constantly filling with water, either here or in here. Or in here. So the trouble with this design is it only has one bolt, and I'm not satisfied that that's safe on the road.
I bought this stainless steel bracket online in the US. I think I have deleted from my memory how much exactly it cost after the trauma of paying customs on it too. This is the bracket I took out. to fit the new one. To fit the bracket without scratching the wheel even more than the original bracket did, I manufactured this small piece of mahogany to seat it properly. It ends up as a beautiful job, working both as a boarding step and as a stop bumper for the boat. Note that this wheel now has 2 bolts. 2 of everything is half the problems. I had to trim the bolts to fit here, but what's a how-to video without a bit of slow-mo angle grinding? On the subject of spare wheels, I have now added a socket to match the trailer wheel nuts to the car toolkit. No point in having a spare wheel if you can't get the bolts off, so just leave it in the car. So now for road trials. I picked up the boat after its service and was bound for Loughree on the other side of the mountains. You know that moment when the GPS offers you 3 routes and that little voice says, "Go on, take the crazy route." Well, this time I had a reason. This time I had built a trailer fit for all roads. All that was left was to prove it. There were times up here in the mountain where I wondered if these roads had actually ever seen a boat in the history of civilization. Who knows? But what I do know is that the boat sat happy as Larry all along this bumpy mountain road. I simply could not have done this with the bunks. I ran at speed and I heard not one solitary thump of my precious little boat. She sat happily in the mirror with her "Are we there yet?" face on. Thinking the mountain was the ultimate test, we then descended into boglands, and those in Ireland will know that bog roads are the most bumpy and lumpy roads you can find. Finding foundation is rare out here in the bog, and it's intermittent, so these roads have rare and intermittent parts that do not subside. The result would be a test on any trailer, and mine was fine. So I carried on to Coosan Point and met up with friends there. The whole point of trailer launching is obviously safety, but close behind that is ease, confidence and versatility. Tweaking your trailer until it is as you want it is worth doing. What is easy is easier to do often. The hardest thing about owning a boat is using it enough to justify what you spent on it. So go on, go easy on yourself, get your trailer right. Being able to launch and recover easily as well as tow easily doesn't just save on mooring fees, it keeps your hobby nearby for that half hour of tinkering after work, and it also opens up the wider country to explore, and that is the name of the game. In the model of land ownership we have in this country, we fall short of others in terms of the right to roam on land, but we excel in the opportunities we have to explore waterways both inland and offshore. The facilities are really great and quite unrestrictive compared. I am so glad to have opened the door to all of this. You see, in a good trailer, it works every time. In a perfect trailer, you don't have to be perfect. And here is my proof. We are an island nation. Coastline is what we have more of than anyone. It is mariners that we all should be, because this is the amenity that we have in most abundance. And arguably it represents many of our most beautiful places. We are islanders, after all. I have strayed from the subject of spanners and bolts, I know, but make it easy, get afloat and enjoy the treasures that we have on this most beautiful island of ours.